Hey, look at me filming. Wow, crazy, right? All right, so new semester started. Great. Oh, I feel like death. Okay, it's literally day 3 of a new semester, and I already feel behind. I have been up since 7 a.m. doing math. It's 11:35 a.m. as I'm filming this, and my brain freaking hurts, and it feels like there's so much to do. I feel like I barely made a dent. So I'm just gonna relax. I'm gonna film, eat, and chill while there's no one home. So, I wanted to talk to y'all about the worst movie I have ever seen in my life. Now, I like a lot of movies that critics were not kind to. Um, some of the Disney movies from the 90s that are kind of forgotten, like Newsies with the live action, which was a movie before it became a Broadway musical, critics were not very nice to it. It did not get very good reviews. Things like Bohemian Rhapsody. Critics were not very kind to it. So, those are just a few, but then things like Wizard of Oz that were box office flops, things like that. Just because critics don't like it doesn't mean it's not a good movie. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not here to judge like what people can like stuff because like if it brings you joy, does it spark joy for you? Then it's good. Like something can be poorly made, but still have like a good story, good writing, things like that. So when it comes to movies and film, it's relative. It's all relative. So that is the disclaimer. This is the worst movie I've ever seen for me. If you like this movie, good for you. I wish I could be you, but I'm not. I'm not. And I know like you're only 20, you've not seen that many movies. Yeah, okay. I have seen quite a few movies from my 20 years of life, and maybe a few years down the road, I'll see more movies, then that'll top this one. But for right now, as I'm filming this on August 28th, 2019, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. So, disclaimer, also spoilers for the movie because we're gonna jump all over the place. All right. So, I heard of this movie a couple months ago. I don't really know. When I started getting more into Queen, I heard about it. And like watching or listening to the commentaries that Roger and Brian did over their music videos. They did one over It's a Kind of Magic, and they're talking about this movie. That movie is called Highlander. Highlander. Oh my word! Now I love 80s movies. I love 80s movies. Breakfast Club, Indiana Jones movies, things like that. I love 80s movies. I think they have a lot of great movies. Pretty in Pink, Dirty Dancing, things like that. I love them. So I thought, oh, it's a cool 80s movie. 80s movie I've never seen before. I'll watch it. I did pay for it. Um, although, I technically watched it through my dad's like Amazon account, which he pays for. So we've technically paid for it. Don't pirate, kids, or at least don't get caught doing it. Okay. Now, this movie has, I have the IMDb details up, 7.1 out of 10, which isn't bad. It's average. A 24 on Metacritic, which that's now critics do not a movie make. I've already said that. However, in this instance, I think they were right. Right? And I'm going to go case by case for why I just don't think this movie's that good. Number one, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It is so all over the place. The director, who's the director? Hold on. Hello, what you doing? All right. That is not what I want. Okay. The director, Russell Mulcahy? I butchered that. I'm so sorry. Okay. Doesn't know what it wants it to be. Does he want it to be a dramatic fantasy adventure? Does he want it to be this weird science fiction thing where it's like this otherworldly alien, I guess, power has this control? Does he want it to be like a it doesn't know what it wants to be. It is all over the place. And now genre crossing can work pretty well sometimes. This is not a very good example of that. It is so. And then some other research. And then the main character, Connor McLeod, the actor who plays him, Christopher Lambert, like no tea, no shade, never heard of him before this. And he has like the same facial expressions through the whole movie. He's like 3 different ones. He doesn't emote very much, and you would think after seeing like a lot of people die, he watched his wife die. He's been through a lot. I mean, I understand like wanting to keep that inside and keep a cold exterior, but at least once you figured he'd emote. Like there was points where he was happy with his wife and all that. Like I digress. Also, just to show you how much of a box office flop this is, so I didn't do this research. A friend of mine, we were talking about it, and she also hates this movie, told me that, I'm assuming these are USA numbers, this movie had a $19 million budget. Now, that seems like a lot to like a normal person, and it is. Like, if you were to give an average person $19 million, that's a lot. In 1986 dollars, which was a lot more money for a movie, that's like a normal budget. The original Star Wars movie only had a budget of $10 million. So this is actually like above average for the 70s, 80s like time frame. And it only made in the USA $12 million. It did not make back the budget, which is a flop because you need that money to pay back the actors, the crew, everyone who's involved in it. You need that money. And, okay, I know people love to hate America and all that, and that's your prerogative, but America is the place to make it in music, movies. If your music does well in America, it will do well anywhere. It's a big market for that, whether you like it or not. Now, I'm not saying that things that are more on one side of the world and not really over here are bad. Like, I love British TV that we don't get here very often. I like things like K-pop that are becoming more mainstream, but it's still a niche. It's very much a niche market. But this, according to this, the country of origin is the UK, so I'm blaming UK for this abomination. All right, back on track. This movie has Sean Connery in it. I love Sean Connery. I think he does great. You know, James Bond, Indiana Jones, Hunt for Red October. He does great. But in this movie, he plays an Egyptian, which is like, now, he might have Egyptian heritage somewhere. I don't know. But the only thing I could find online about him was he is very Scottish. So I don't want to say he doesn't have Egyptian heritage somewhere, but he's very Scottish. Anyway, plays an Egyptian who has an Hispanic name. His name's Ramirez. And I'm like, what? Again, the movie doesn't know what it wants to be. And this person helps him realize, so you're this immortal being now. You were chosen. Doesn't say why he was chosen. Now, that can work in, you know, there doesn't need to be a specific reason why they were chosen. Like, you know, an underdog can do great things. Like, everyone loves an underdog story. But there was literally nothing really that special about him. Like, I literally did not like our main character until about 30 minutes into the movie. And that's good. Okay. And, okay. I guess this is how I'm going to explain, like, the whole of the movie and, like, try to relax. Okay. In a fantasy world, there are things that It doesn't really matter. It's fantasy. In Frozen, they don't explain how Elsa got her powers. She was just born with them. I stole that point from The Odd Ones Out in his video about the Dark Crystal, by the way, so that was not my point. Thanks, James. In things like Harry Potter, you can explain away a lot of things because magic exists in this universe. So, is that really like the biggest problem? Like, if magic exists, then all these other things can possibly exist. Like, but in those universes, in both Frozen and Harry Potter, there are rules. There are limits to what the magic can do. There are expectations for Elsa to meet. There are boundaries. And if you don't give your characters boundaries, then there's nothing for them to break through. There's nothing for them to try and avoid. There's nothing for them to meet. There's no real conflict. Like for example, in Highlander, there's this scene where he gets thrown out of a boat, and he's like, "Oh, I can't swim." He's like, "You can't drown. You're immortal." And he kind of just like stands there at the bottom of the ocean for a minute, like just not ocean, um, river or lake or fresh water of some sort, just doing his thing. And like towards the end, they said like a little bit later they set up rules like only if you're hit in this really weird area on your neck. Like not even like our main villain who, um, had been like decapitated or something before and like had safety pins like around his neck, keeping his head on his body. Personally, I like the aesthetic they were going for, but like anyway, so there wasn't a very good setup for this universe, much like the Dark Crystal, the original. I don't know anything about the Netflix stuff because frankly, puppets scare me. So if you don't have anything to give those characters conflict, then it's boring. It's boring. Even and then okay, this villain is supposed to be Russian. This guy, let me look up who played him. Let's see his nationality. Was born in Ohio. Okay, so he's American. No, come on, America. Doing a horrible Russian accent. And the only reason we know he's Russian is because Sean Connery's character said something about him like being like originating from Russia or whatever. Anyway, I like the aesthetic they have going on. They have the black jacket, they've got the high boots, he's scary, got those safety pins around his neck. Like the aesthetic they were going for of like dangerous guy, villain, but he looks really cool, is there. Like if nothing else, costume design for him, A+. And all right, what's another thing? I want to talk about some good things about the movie. There was this one scene I remember. It's like a flashback scene, one of Connor's flashbacks of him in World War II, and like I'm assuming Germany. And he's like running away from the Nazis. And he sees this little girl, so he picks her up and they run together. And a Nazi comes and shoots him in the back. And him and the girl fall. And he's immortal, so he survives. And the little girl's like, "Oh, how'd you do that?" And he goes, "A kind of magic." And I'm like, they do that a lot through the movie. They like say it's a kind of magic or a kind of magic. They're like, I feel like they're like trying to say Queen did the music for this. Please enjoy it. That's not the good line, but anyway, what comes next is the officer like sparking orders in German, which there were no subtitles for. So I don't know what he was saying at all. But he like turns around and says, and like I don't remember if he had a gun or something on him or like he had gotten one from wherever, but he says, okay, whatever you say, you're the master race, and he shoots him. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty good. Like, that was like a good scene. And there was one other scene that's good, but it has a word in it that is technically considered a slur, and I don't want to say it because I don't want to get in YouTube trouble. So, and then, oh, one last good scene. It's not even that good of a scene. The music's just good. So, his wife is dying. She's very old at this point, and he still looks, young because he can live forever. And he's laying there with his wife, holding her, and this instrumental version of Who Wants to Live Forever is playing. It is so pretty. It is so beautiful. Like, seriously, play that at my funeral. Like, the violins going, it is so pretty. And you might be thinking, Cam, you've got all these nonsensical scenes, bits. What's the point of this movie? What is the driving, plot? So, the plot is that one day, eventually, all of these immortal people who are just randomly chosen, no particular rhyme or reason, to be immortal and live forever, will feel this urge, just know and feel this urge, they don't explain why, to come, or they don't explain why it's an urge, they don't, whatever, to come to this one area, which is modern day New York City, or modern day 1986 New York City, because where else you can film a movie, and they're going to fight this battle, this quickening for the prize. Couldn't have used adjectives there. We don't know what this is until the very freaking end of the movie. So, okay, why should we care? And anyway, the last two immortals end up being Connor and, let me look at his name on the Kurgan. Yeah, okay. The Russian guy with the safety pins, okay. End up being the last two, and they have this battle that's not even that well fought. It was better towards the end because, the girl, the love interest, who I don't remember, a whole lot about her other than she did forensics and was able to figure out, hey, this sword shouldn't exist, and ends up, falling in love with Connor, whatever. All I'm saying, girl, you could do better. So she also gets into the fray and saves him, and then he saves her. So, it's still not that great, but it's much better than the fight scenes earlier on. And he kills Kurgan, and he's lifted up, and all this stuff's floating around him. These special effects are so bad, and it's not even this was 1986, okay? The first 3 Star Wars movies were out by this point. 2 Indiana Jones movies were out by this point. I don't think there was any reason for the special effects to look that bad. Yes, they should look bad to us, especially on HD TVs and stuff like that. HD, did I say HD? HD TVs and stuff like that. But the music video for It's a Kind of Magic by Queen looks better than half of this movie. I'm not even joking you. And he's oh, I know all things, and oh, I'll be mortal now and be able to stay with you, and things like that. And I'm what? I personally think that's a cop-out. I think it should have been just they get to live a normal life because, oh, I know all things and I can help people now. Well, throughout history, you've learned a lot of things and you were still able to help people because you knew stuff about the past that people in that time wouldn't know, but whatever. And personally, I don't like stories that are they become a godlike figure because playing God never works out at all. Death Note is a good example of that. So, all right, I have rambled a lot about this. So, all right. In conclusion, I'm going to say the story is there. I like the idea. They didn't explain the rules of this world well enough to that we have a lot of major conflict because we don't even know Kurgan's like real motives for anything other than like he's bad because he's just on the opposite. He's just different to Connor. For all we know, he's the good guy. So it's just so all over the place. The movie doesn't know what it wants to be. All of the like I throughout the movie, the whole time they keep saying like it's kind of magic or a kind of magic. Like they're trying to tell you Queen did this music, so please support it. Like that's it was. And then hold up, wait a minute. There's a sequel. 1, 2, 3 sequels. Okay, Highlander 2, The Quickening, Highlander Endgame, Highlander The Final Dimension. What the freak? Okay, I might need to watch the other 3 to like see which one's the worst because this again, the worst I have seen up until this point in my life. I might need to watch the other 3 and then I'll do like a ranking video. So, in conclusion, all in all, if it had a better script, like an editor looked at it and said, you need to explain this, or we need to do this instead, or we had more backstory about specific characters and we cast Egyptian people to play Egyptians. I think it could have been a much better movie. So, again, that was all opinion. You don't have to agree with it. If you like this movie, like, I wish I could be you. I really do. So, that is all. I am done. Let me go eat some food and relax before I have to go back to doing math. Ugh. So, I'll see y'all later. Bye.